So the purpose of this video is to show you how to access the 1851 religious census data, which is stored at the National Archives. It's stored as a set of PDF files, photocopies of the original census returns. The address that you have to go to access these things is terribly non-memorable. It's the one shown here on this particular slide, and if we click it now, we should go directly to the archive in the web browser. And here we are, and it takes us to a page which has on the top of it HO129, and HO129, well, HO stands for the Home Office, and 129 is just the code of the records that come, which happen to consist of the ecclesiastical census returns. And as it says here, these are the ecclesiastical census returns, returns of churches and chapels, endowments, sittings, estimated attendance on 30th of March 1851, plus the average numbers during the preceding 12 months. And it does warn you that in a few cases the papers that you read happen to refer not to the ecclesiastical census but actually the educational census, which took place in the same year. Very importantly, it says that records within this series are available to download free of charge. So if at any point it looks as though you are going to have to pay for something, you've gone down the wrong route. You should be getting these for free. Okay, so the ecclesiastical census returns covered the whole of England and Wales, but obviously we're only going to be interested in perhaps a small area at any given time. The particular area that I'm going to be interested in for the purpose of this video is a place called Welshampton in North Shropshire. So I'm interested in the Shropshire returns, but I'm also interested in the fact that Welshampton is close to Ellesmere, which was one of the registration districts within the Shropshire area. But the first thing I'm going to have to do is to find the records for Shropshire. Now, if you look over here, what you've got on this side of the page is a list of sub-series within HO129. They begin with lists of areas in London, but as you go down you will see that they actually relate more commonly to counties. They're not in any particular order, so Surrey comes before Kent, which comes before Sussex, and to find the county you want you just have to go down the list and carry on going down the list until you locate the county of your choice. So as I go down here, I go through counties in no particular order, and eventually I get down to Shropshire, which is the one I want. Now I've wanted Derbyshire. I haven't seen Derbyshire, so what I would have to do is click on this here down to the next 30. I get some new counties appearing, and as I go down, there is Derbyshire located. However, for the purposes of this search, I'm looking for Shropshire, so I'm going to go back to the first 30. There are only 60 or so of them. If you try and go to the third list, it means you've gone too far. And of course, modern counties that have come into existence since 1851, such as West Midlands, are not going to be found on this particular list. So I'm going back down here again, back to the end where I know Shropshire exists, and I'm going to click on Shropshire. Okay, so there we have it, Shropshire subseries within HO129. And on this side now I have a list of Shropshire towns. They are in effect the registration, well, they are the registration districts that existed in Shropshire for the 1851 census, and you can see there's Shrewsbury, Oswestry, Ellesmere, Wem, Market Drayton, Wellington, etc. Clearly, although Telford is now a large town within Shropshire, Telford was not a big place in Shropshire in 1851, and therefore it wasn't a registration district. So, if you were looking for churches which are now within the Telford area, you might look at Wellington, surrounding areas to find those churches. However, I know I'm looking for Welshampton, and I know that Welshampton is close to Ellesmere, so I'm going to go to the Ellesmere one and click on details. Having clicked on details, I get through to the entry to Ellesmere. I can see that the reference code for Ellesmere is 362 within the 129 records. It tells me that the National Archives are stored in Kew, and I also get this facility now on this side of the page to, well, it says I can download. In fact, I can't download at this point. I can just add to basket. So I will add to basket, and it looks like I've come back to exactly the same place, but in fact what I should see now is that these records here have been added to the basket. Now I can go on to other areas of the country and continue to add more and more records to the basket, so that I could effectively add all of England and all of Wales to the basket that we have. However, that will simply give me more files to download in one go at the end. I won't get them as one file, I'll get them as multiple files, and it's probably just as convenient to come back and get files as and when you want them. So I will now continue to basket just to retrieve the files for Ellesmere. Okay, this is where it begins to look scary, because we see down here we've got things like MasterCards and Visas and American Expresses, looking as though we are going to end up paying, but in fact the total still tells us that it's £0, no pence. It does say there's some world payments processing, but I'm comforted by the fact that again it says the total is nothing, so I will continue to check out. And again I see that the cost is going to be £0 and no pence, so again I'm reassured. I'm reassured despite the fact that it says I should go to the World Pay website to make a payment. That won't happen, I can assure you. Now I am required here to put in an email address. I'm not going to put in my actual email address, I'm going to put in one which I hope will fool it. You can choose to do the same as me, or you could choose to put your real email address in. The advantage of putting a real email address in is that you will get emailed with links to the pages which you can go back to within a month. You've also got to accept the terms and conditions. Once an email address is in there, and once the box for accepting the terms and conditions has been clicked, then the submit order button becomes live and you can click on that. So at this point, had I put in a real email address, I would have received an email in my inbox which would give me a link to the downloads which I could use over the next month. As I've put in a completely fake address, it will go nowhere at all. Again, I'm still seeing that everything is costing £0 and no pence, so I'm reasonably reassured that nothing untoward is happening. I could now go and pick it up from my email if I put in the real email address, but I also have a button which allows me to say download now. I'll click on that and then you'll see that it was actually having me on, because I get to another screen where there are another couple of download buttons. essentially the records for Ellesmere are sufficiently large that the site wants to split them up into 2 packages of PDF files. So all the records for Ellesmere are on H0129362, but the software has decided that it will give me them at 40 at a time, and it's given me 2 files, file number 1 and file number 2. I will now download file number 1. Just waiting for it to come down. Here it comes. It's opened up. And now it's arrived, I can actually open it and have a see what's there. Okay, so you can see now that what I've actually got is photocopies of the handwritten returns for churches in the Ellesmere district. They come in a fairly random order as far as I've been able to work out, but within that random order there is some sense of location. So what you get is usually the parish church of a particular area, followed by the dissenting churches within that area. So here on the first page we've actually got the parish of Overton, which means I'm definitely in the right area. That's North Shropshire, it's close to Ellesmere. And then there are records following that which relate to the dissenting churches in the same area as Overton Parish Church. And usually the first page gives you a list of what's coming up next. So that sort of indicates to me that the first record is a church, then there'll be a Primitive Methodist, then another Primitive Methodist, then a Wesleyan, then another church, possibly a Chapel of Ease, then a Primitive Methodist, and then another Primitive Methodist. Maybe that you find that difficult to look at. If on this particular viewer of PDF files, if I move out to where I've just moved my cursor, I get the ability to zoom in. So by pressing the plus sign I can zoom in and see things rather larger and therefore read things rather better. I might also have to slide things along to make something centered. So I can see there that this is definitely St Mary's Overton, the church of an ancient chapelry held in something with the rectory of Bangor Iscoed. Okay, I'm now going to move out a little bit again so that it gets back to being sort of a normal size. Right, so to find Welshampton, what I'm going to have to do is to scroll down. So here we go. That second record is actually Overton. Again, as you can see, what they tend to do is give you the list of churches and then they move it aside so that you can see most of the Church of England form. Some of the list of chapels coming after a Church of England form can be quite long and mask out all the details. Again, that's St Mary's Overton. Right, we go down and actually we get to a dissenting chapel record there. In essence, the Church of England records were in portrait mode, whereas all the others were landscape mode. Now, I know I haven't gotten to Welshampton Church of England Church yet, so I know this isn't going to be the record I'm looking for a dissenting chapel in Welshampton. So I'll continue on until I see another Church of England, and then I'll see if that's the one I want. So obviously continuing through dissenting chapels. Okay, so that is a Church of England one. It's upside down. On this version of the PDF view I have, if I right click, I can get rotate clockwise and rotate clockwise again. I can move across a bit like that. I can zoom in a bit. Oh, no, that's not the zoom in. Oh, gone off a little bit. There we go. It's gone back to its original. Rotate it anti-clockwise. This sometimes happens. Move over a bit. Come to here. I can come in a bit, and I can see that actually is Penley. So not the one I want. I'll move out again a little bit and continue to scroll down and look for things that way up again. That's a dissenting church, and that's a dissenting church, and that's a dissenting church. Here we have an upside down Church of England church. So again, right click, rotate clockwise, right click, rotate clockwise again. This is a case where the list of churches following has managed to completely mask out the fact that the name of the church that we should be looking at, so we might have to go down to the next one. Hopefully, though it doesn't look like that, we would see the thing lifted up, and we don't, which is a disappointment, but it doesn't look like it's actually Welshampton, so I can continue on. And if I was in any doubt, I would find that this record here is actually from Bettisfield, which is definitely not Welshampton Way. So continuing to go down until I next see a Church of England. Here's one. I need to zoom in a bit because it's not very readable. This is Trinity Chapel. Again, not seeing exactly, not being able to read exactly what that is. The handwriting is interesting, but it isn't Welshampton, so I'm going to go out and continue down the file. Right, another Church of England church. St Chad's. No, I have no idea where St Chad's is, but I happen to know that Welshampton Parish Church is called St Michael's, so that's not going to be the one either. So again, we proceed down the file. Oop. A few dissenting chapels. Okay. So we've got to another Church of England church, whereby you can see there's an awful lot of chapels going to be following it, and the list of chapels has definitely obscured the name of the church, so hopefully this will come up. And when the list is lifted up, we actually see the parish church of Welshampton. Welshampton spelt with CH, which isn't the way that it's uh, spelt today, and it's dedicated to St Michael the Archangel. Well, the church today is called St Michael and Angels, so slight difference there, but we are in the right area. So let's look for the chapel we're trying to find. Here we have a dissenting chapel. Again, it's in landscape mode, so we need to turn round. I think I haven't turned that around quite the right way. Let's keep on going. Clockwise will do. Come down. No, that's upside down. Try again. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we have a primitive Methodist chapel, which is what I'm looking for. But interestingly here, and I'm going to try and make that a bit bigger, this says here that it's Breeden Heath Chapel. Now I know that actually what I'm looking for is Welshampton Primitive Methodist Church, and that Breeden Heath is a slightly different place. So I haven't quite got the record that I wanted. I also know that the church that I'm looking for is somewhat less old rather than this. This church was erected in 1832. The one I'm looking for was a bit later, and we'll see that in a moment. So continue down. And here we have somewhere called Hampton Chapel. It's in Welshampton Parish, it says, and then it's crossed out Ellesmere. It says Welshampton Parish Envisage. It says it's in Oswestry District. Well, that's a bit of a mistake because it should actually say the registration district, and actually this is in the Ellesmere registration district. The county is right. It says it's in Salop, which is the old name for Shropshire. Religious denomination is a Primitive Methodist. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And when erected, well, this says that it was erected in about 1841 or 1842. Now, often this field was difficult for the people filling it in to fill in correctly, because they weren't sure whether they meant when the building was started or when the building was finished. And in actual fact, the chapel I'm looking for, the Primitive Methodist Church in Welshampton, has a date on the front of it which says that it was built in 1843. So that's close, and we could accept that that was the right chapel. It says it's an entirely separate building, and it's used exclusively as a place of worship. It says that there are 100 seats there, 60 of them free, and 40 presumably paid for. But again, that was an area of the census in which there was a certain amount of doubt as to what people were supposed to put in. It says there was no standing room. I can believe that you could get 100 people in Welshampton Primitive Methodist Church. I think there might be sitting like sardines, but I can believe that that is a possibility. So it all stacks up. Now this is the place on the census that the person who filled it in was supposed to put the numbers of people who attended on Sunday, March the 30th, 1851. But you can see they've been left blank. Now, probably the reason they've been left blank is because of the date this was actually filled in on, and it was on the 29th day of December 1851, which was well after the date of the census, and probably nobody had done the counting on the 30th of March, and therefore trying to put any accurate numbers in was never going to work, so it was left off. The census was sent out in good time for the 30th of March. However, some people did not fill it in, and there were 2 reminders sent out later for people to complete the return. And in some cases, as with this, it was not possible to remember exactly how many people had attended on the census date. But we do have the average number of attendants. Again, there's been a bit of a mess in filling this in. They filled in the morning and then realised they didn't have a morning service, so moved the 40 out of the morning, put it into the afternoon session as long with Sunday school scholars. So 55 attending in the afternoon, 50 or so attending in the evening. And that makes sense because this particular church was known at roughly the same time to be planned just for afternoon and evening services and not for mornings. So, although I can't exactly be sure that this is the church that I'm looking for, there's a good chance it's the right date and it has the services at the right time. So we see that the return was signed, and we've seen it was signed on the 29th of December by someone who appears to be called Peter Morris, who definitely had the job of local preacher, and he lived in the marketplace in Ellesmere. So that is a short demonstration of how you use the religious census to find a particular record for a church in a particular area. I hope it's been of some use, and I hope you are able to follow what I've done and look at your particular area for the details of the churches that you are familiar with. Bye.